Hello. So this video is a performance review of Zapkin Buskin Theater Company's The Will to Kill. Now this isn't a play as such. This is a murder mystery party, which is a thing that Zapkin Buskin does a couple of times a year. It is a kind of combination play, whodunit, cocktail party. Yeah, it's a thing that I had never done before. My partner and I had never done before, and it's a very different type of theater because the vast majority of it consists of us, the spectators, the audience, interacting with the actors rather than the actors interacting amongst themselves, performing amongst themselves. There is a portion of it that's that, but the majority is audience interaction as we are figuring out who these characters are, what they're about, their attitude toward the other characters, etc., etc. So basically, the premise of The Will to Kill is that we're attending the will reading of Edmund Carroll Warren, a real estate baron who amassed a huge fortune while alienating his sister, his 3 children, and their spouses, and to a lesser extent, his corporate subordinates, some of whom have more of a positive attitude toward him than others. The only person that Edmund actually seems to like or care about in any way is his adopted nephew, Alistair. I say adopted nephew. We find out later that it's actually more his grandson who Edmund got his sister to adopt to avoid the scandal, unbeknownst to the sister, to avoid the scandal of his daughter having an illegitimate child. So basically in the early portion of the evening, we, the audience, just sort of come in, hang out, have hors d'oeuvres, have drinks, whatever it is. We, again, talk to the actors, each of whom remains in character, and they sort of give us their backstory, their relationship to Edmund, their attitudes towards him. So his children, Reggie, Victoria, and I forget his other daughter's name off the top of my head. They're generally not too thrilled with him. Reggie is the most overt about this because Reggie is a globe-trotting bohemian poet who is married to the Scottish lass Isla. Reggie's poems, when he performs them, are pop song lyrics, which Isla does not seem to recognize, but which everyone else in the room is meant to get. He, in particular, really sort of despised his dad. Victoria did as well, because they are each arts people. Victoria was on a children's show, and then not as a child, like she was the adult character on a children's show, and now she's working on true crime stories. And Edmund did not support the arts, so we get that bit. So we got those kinds of relationships. On the other hand, you got someone like Bruce, who is the, I think, vice president. I forget exactly what it was. Vice president for operations, something like that. And he's just a very ruthless corporate guy, like very much a whatever it takes to make a buck, ethics, consequences, be damned type figure. And he really admired Edmund's ruthlessness, his business cunning, his willingness to do anything to turn a profit, etc., etc. So you've got these different characters, different attitudes. And basically, as audience members, we spend the first portion just getting to know people. Then we all gather around a TV for a video reading by Edmund of his will. The reading is run through with his criticisms of those around him, with the exception of Alistair. Alistair ends up inheriting everything. Nobody else gets anything. He cuts off his sister, cuts off his children. Everything goes to Alistair, which he inherits on his 30th birthday, which happens to be tomorrow. That is a fact that we should take note of, because in the next phase of the evening, we go back to sort of milling around with the characters, getting their reactions to this announcement, their sort of assessment, their plans of action going forward, etc., etc. And then it is announced by the lawyer who facilitated the playing of the video will that Alistair's body has been found, stabbed to death with a letter opener. The next thing that happens is that Inspector Perrier shows up. Inspector Perrier is a French inspector over on an exchange program with the Belfont, PA Police Department, and he basically deputizes everybody in the room who's not a suspect, i.e. not an actor, to investigate, gather information from the suspects, find evidence, etc., etc. And that's what we spend most of the rest of the evening doing, is, again, talking to the actors and questioning them, getting pieces of information, etc., etc. And then finally, we have a very traditional sort of detective story, murder mystery, whodunit conclusion, in which Inspector Perrier says, "You had a motive, but here's why you didn't do it. And you had a motive, but here's why you didn't do it. This is the person who did it, and here is why and how we know." Very traditional ending. So it was good. It was fun. It was interesting. There's a massive difference between sitting in the audience and watching a performance being done and being part of the performance itself. Interactive theater is very, very different than traditional Western theater, in which the audience observes without engaging. So it's a fun, different type of experience. That being said, I don't know that I was a particularly good audience member. I basically, from the beginning, I decided that I was just going to fuck with everybody, which I proceeded to do throughout the whole evening. That was tremendously amusing for my partner and the couple who were sitting near us, who basically just spent most of the night laughing. But the actors had some somewhat different experiences of it, or reactions to it, I should say. So Greg Baptista, who I've worked with before in Sock and Buskin, we performed together in It's a Wonderful Life, Joe Landry's radio play version. So Greg and I knew each other. And then Lily Falcone, who was playing the lawyer, who I've worked with. I'm currently working with on our production of Sweet Surrender, coming up at the end of April, if you're in the central PA area. But also on Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap last year. So they both seemed to really, really enjoy what I was doing, and just sort of kept coming back to sort of see what kind of insanity I was going to come up with next. And despite the fact that Greg, who was playing Reggie, was supposed to be very angry about his father's decision, and then Alistair was murdered and he was a suspect, I kept making him sort of break down laughing. Interestingly enough, so the main claim that I made over the course of the evening was that Edmund and I had stormed the beaches at Normandy together. Lily is the only one who questioned that at all. All of the other actors did the improv thing where, okay, you've given me a bit, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna accept the thing that you've said. The problem with the thing that I had said was that according to Edmund's obituary, he was born in 1949. Which, as Lily pointed out, and no one else seemed to have noticed, means that actually he would, at the time of the Normandy invasion, the D-Day invasion, he would have been -5. He was -4 when the war ended. My answer to this was that he lied about his age. He tried to enlist in the Marines originally, but they caught on. Then he enlisted in the Army, and they weren't as quick on the uptake. So it was this very like, yes, I'm coming up with these sort of insane things that don't make any sense. And the fact that I was born in 1987, decades after the end of the war, was never questioned either. People just accepted that was a thing that they now had to deal with in at least interacting with me. So that was kind of a fun, weird thing. But again, like people like Greg and Lily just came back over multiple times to engage and just sort of have these sort of joyous, insane moments. Some of the other people, particularly Kyle Stanley, I think did not necessarily know what to do with what I was doing. So Kyle played Alistair and then Inspector Perrier, for which he put on a Trilby hat, a fake mustache, and a French accent. And by the time he got over to us as Perrier, I was very much in my sort of, I'm going for it full force with just whatever nonsense I can come up with mode. And so I started like challenging him about being a French police officer, and he was like, and he referred me to the Bellefonte police sergeant, and like I questioned that there could be such a thing in Bellefonte. I claimed he was lying because Bellefonte doesn't have a police exchange program with France. They have one with Helsinki, Finland, and all this stuff. So it really was just this sort of insane, over-the-top responses to what was going on. And I kind of got the sense that Kyle just didn't really know how to react to it, or like what he was really prepared for was people asking questions about the actual content of the murder case, which I was not doing. Like I was making no real attempt to figure out who, according to the storyline, was the killer. What I was doing was having a tremendous amount of fun with it and really trying to push people out of their comfort zone. And so I think in that sense, I was not the ideal person to deputize to solve the murder of Alistair.